Hello, how are you? Okay, so my name is Rachel and I'm currently studying psychology in Trinity College Dublin. The aim of this video is going to give an overview of positive behaviour support for challenging behaviour. This is my first video and I would like to follow on with different areas of what I'm learning in college. If you have any questions or would like a copy of any of my notes or references to the sources, please feel free to email me. I'll provide my email address in the very last slide. Okay, so after today, you should be able to tell me what positive behaviour support is. You should be able to define challenging behaviour. You should know what the difference is between positive behaviour support and applied behaviour analysis. You should be able to tell the outcomes of positive behaviour support. You should be able to know the 5-term contingency model, the key features of positive behaviour support, and the ecology of the support. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so what is positive behaviour support? So, it's the application of the science of applied behaviour analysis in support of people with challenging behaviour. With positive behaviour support, the focus is on fixing the context in which challenging behaviour occurs rather than fixing the problem behaviours themselves. That's the difference. Okay, so positive behaviour support, it's non-linear, it's very much rights-based. So challenging behaviour. So behaviour of such intensity, frequency or duration that the physical safety of the person or others is likely to be placed in serious jeopardy, or behaviour which is likely to seriously limit use of or result in the person being denied access to ordinary community facilities. So challenging behaviour is a very big problem with people with intellectual disabilities, and positive behaviour support interventions is trying to focus on these challenging behaviours and help the context they're in rather than the behaviours themselves. So people with challenging behaviour that have intellectual disability or are on the autism spectrum disorder, a lot of times their challenging behaviour will be self-injury or aggression, which can be very fatal to themselves and the people around them. So the aim of positive behaviour support is to understand where the challenging behaviour comes from the client's point of view, rather than the outsiders. Okay, so a lot of people don't understand the difference between applied behaviour analysis and positive behavioural support. It's because they're very, very similar. So positive behaviour support is actually quite new. It would have started off as applied behaviour analysis, but in recent years, it got a very bad name because in the 1970s, there were use of negative reinforcements, which got quite nasty and people didn't like it. So positive behaviour support is a more rights-based approach rather than empirically driven. It's value-driven. But the two people who kind of campaigned for this in Ireland are Brian McLean and Ian Gray, and their backgrounds are actually in applied behaviour analysis. That's what they've studied. They've taken everything out of applied behaviour analysis literature and turned it into a positive behaviour support approach. So it's very, very similar, but they nearly had to take a shift and change the name because it had such a bad name from the 1970s, which is now illegal to treat people like that, and it's morally wrong. Okay, so the outcomes of positive behaviour support. So there's 8 outcomes in which they hope to get from doing interventions with these challenging behaviours. So they hope for emotional well-being, 2, interpersonal well-being, 3, material well-being, 4, personal well-being, 5, physical well-being, 6, self-determination, 7, social inclusion, and 8, rights. So the rights would be the main difference from the ABA. It's more about the person-centred rather than everything as a whole. Okay. So then there's a 5-term contingency model. So it used to only be 3. So it used to be antecedent, 2, behaviour, and 3, consequence. So the antecedent might be what happened before. So maybe on the way to the clinic, they were being ignored, or they might have been starving, and that might be the reason for the behaviour. And then the consequence, whether it was negatively reinforced, positively reinforced, and all this is watched to see how they act. And the next two that have been added on is setting events, and 5, quality of life and contextual variables, which are very important add-ons, as we want the person to be happy as a whole and not just understand where it's coming from, but actually try and make a change and implement some sort of intervention. Okay, so there are a number of key features of positive behaviour support. So the first one is a functional assessment of behaviour. So this is the very first thing that happens is the behaviour needs to be assessed, it needs to be watched. So the aim of this is to identify and assistance. So to identify what's causing the behaviours. So then identify the consequences of problem behaviours, contextual setting events, and broader quality of life variables. So this is the very, very first step. And there's 4 different methods in the way it can be done. It can be done naturalistic observation, it can be done through interviews, it can be done through psychometric instruments, and it can also be done through analog assessment. So all of these are used, but the most popular one is naturalistic observation, as it's non-invasive, you can just watch and get your results from that. Okay, then the next feature is multi-element behaviour. So there's 4 main components of this. So environmental accommodation, skills teaching, direct interventions, and reactive strategies. There's just 4 different ways they can be implemented. Okay, and the most popular would probably be environmental accommodation. So this one is that we need to make a change for them. The society needs to help them rather than them trying to fit into our society. Okay. And then the third one is life-enhancing interventions. So once they know all of these things, and when it's more clear, they can make different interventions that'll help improve the quality of the person's life, their families, their friends, and that's usually the main goal. Okay, so leading from all of this, we get to the ecology of support. So successful implementations of positive behaviour support for people with intellectual disabilities depend on a number of factors. So the efficiency of PBS programs. So it reduces challenging behaviour. There was a study with 423 patients and 12 outcomes, and it showed that it reduces the challenging behaviour in patients with intellectual disability or autism. And 10 to 15% of people who have an intellectual disability or autism also show to have a challenging behaviour. This is also very cost effective, so it's very easy to be implemented. Okay, then working therapeutically with staff and families. So the staff need to understand what's happening, so do the families, so they can support. Staff training, the staff needs to understand the different types of behaviour problems, how they can be dealt with, their past. Then service design and mindfulness is actually a new one that's been brought in. That's been brought in for the people with intellectual disabilities themselves, and also for staff, because it helps relieve stress, which is one of the major problems working in these areas. Okay, so after this, you should now know what PBS is. You should be able to understand what challenging behaviour is. You should know the difference between applied behaviour analysis and PBS. You should know the outcomes of positive behaviour support. You should know the 5-term contingency model. You should be able to tell the key features of PBS, and you should be able to understand how all of these come together to make the ecology of support. So I hope you liked the video. As I said, this is my first one, so I hope to improve as they go on. If you have any feedback or any suggestions, please feel free to send me an email to rachel.margaret.murphy@gmail.com, and I will be able to share my notes with you or sources, or if you have any videos on different subjects you'd like to see, just let me know. So if you could please like and subscribe, I'd be very, very grateful. It would be wonderful. And the next video I plan to have done is on autism spectrum disorder. Okay, thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Bye.